Hello, you guys. Good morning. Hope you had a great weekend. We're ready to get started with our math lesson of the day. And before we do, I would like to review really important concepts before we start with the class of the day. So we're going to kind of practice to see if you remember how to identify fractions that are greater, bigger than one whole, or less than one whole. Remember last week I mentioned that when our denominator is the number that goes at the bottom, it's bigger than my numerator, then this fraction is less than one whole. It's smaller than one whole. But let's say I have these 3 halves, and then my denominator is showing me a number that is lesser than my numerator. That means this fraction is greater than one whole. Okay, and we're going to represent very quickly, our 1/2 and our 3 halves. If I want to represent 1/2 in my strip or my model that I have here, the number underneath on the bottom is going to show me how many equal shares I have, correct? So in this case, I have 2 equal shares, and they're telling me to take up 1 out of it. So this is the way I represent it, correct? So how many wholes do I need to represent this fraction? Only 1 whole, and actually I don't even need the whole thing. I need only a piece of it, 1/2. Okay, let's see quickly this second example. We have 3 halves, and the number underneath at the bottom shows me into how many equal pieces or cuts I'm going to divide my wholes, right? So I have each whole, I have to cut it into 2. And then I have to shade the number that shows me up here, which is 3. So I have to color 1, 2, 3. See, to represent this fraction, I need more than 1 whole. I need 1 whole, and I need a second whole to be able to represent. So remember, every time my denominator is bigger than my numerator, I'm only going to need 1 whole. But if the denominator, the number that is at the bottom, is smaller than my numerator, I'm going to need more than 1 whole to represent that fraction. Okay, now I want you to look at these strips that I have. I have one strip that shows or represents 1 whole. Why I know it's a 1 whole? Because it doesn't have any equal shares. It's complete. It hasn't been cut. In the second strip, which is exactly the same size, I have partitioned my strip into 2 pieces. So each piece, each equal share represents 1/2, right? In the third strip, I have partitioned my whole into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal shares. And in the fourth strip, I partition my whole, which is the same size as the first one. I had partitioned it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. Okay, now there is something else I want to show you. My red piece of Lego represents one hole because it hasn't been cut. My second two pieces of Legos represent 1/2 each. And in the third representation, I have 4 pieces, and each piece represents 1/4. Right now, what I want you to do with me is we're going to compare. Do you notice that even though 1/2 has a smaller number denominator as a denominator, it's bigger on size than the ones that are represented with 1/4? That's crazy too. My 1/2 is way bigger, is actually double the size of my 1/4. So that means only in unit fractions, remember, we're talking about unit fractions. Those are the ones that have the 1 as a numerator. Only in unit fractions. If you have a smaller number, you get a bigger piece. It means that the fraction is bigger. If you have a smaller number, you get a bigger piece. If you have a big number or a bigger number, the pieces are smaller. Let's check this out. Look, I want you to help me figuring this out. 1/2 is less than or greater than 1/4. Let's take a look. 1/2, is it bigger or smaller than 1/4? What do you think? Look at the size of this. 1/2, is it bigger or smaller than 1/4? Of course it's bigger, because one piece of this is way bigger than one piece of this. So the answer for this, which one should I circle? 1/2 is less than 1/4, or 1/2 is greater than 1/4? Of course it's this one. 1/2 is greater than 1/4. Remember, when you have unit fractions, the smallest denominator is the biggest piece. The smaller denominator, it's the biggest piece. Before we finish, we're going to try to do a word problem together. Let's read. It says, Lily needs 1/3 cup of oil and 1/4 cup of water to make muffins. Will Lily use more oil or more water? Explain your answer using pictures, numbers, and words. So the first thing that we do have to look for, we have to notice that we have these two numbers, two fractions that are important, right? So we're going to draw. You know, kids, I'm terrible at drawing, but I'm going to make my best effort. So let's say we have 1 cup, and then we have the other cup. I try to make them more or less the same size, because when I partition them, they have to be similar in size, so I can really see if my equal shares are bigger or smaller, that I can actually compare the two of them. So it says that Lily needs 1/3 cup of oil. So I'm going to try to partition this first cup into what? I have to represent 1/3. And the other one I have to represent 1/4. So okay, let's start with this one. How many pieces do I have to partition this one into? 3 equal pieces. I'm going to do my best. 1, 2, 3. And the other one I have to partition into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many am I going to take from here? 1, right? And here I'm going to take 1. So just by looking at it, what can you say? Which one is bigger? This represents the oil, because it says 1/3 of oil and 1/4 of water, right? So this is oil and this is water. And it says that the question that they're asking in the problem is, will Lily use more oil or more water? What do you think? Which piece is bigger? This 1/3 or this 1/4? Which one do you think it's bigger? Yay, the oil is bigger. So my explanation or my answer for this word problem would be Lily uses more oil than water to make